Thank you, Tom, Larry, also for inviting me. I did not have to think very long to accept being the keynote, but it took me some time to come up with the topic, actually. But in the end, yeah, everything is AI nowadays, so I could not get around that. And I do have some experience with AI myself. So I came up with a talk on what are challenges that come with AI, how do we understand what risks we are facing with AI. I'll be definitely focusing a little bit more on generative AI, because that's what we've been facing for the last couple of years. And then also as a society, but also as a community, as organizations, but also on a personal level, how do we tackle this? How do we make sure that the promise and the impact that AI already has, how do we make sure that we can actually secure this? So the title is Secure with AI or Despite AI. I really believe that this is something that we can secure in the way that we've done in the past with new evolutions, like we've seen the internet, we've seen web, we've seen mobile, cloud, and so on, with all its new vulnerabilities and security challenges. And AI is obviously not different, but there are some nuances, so bear with me. So thank you for the introduction. Yes, indeed, I've co-founded BruCON. I'm really proud of that, and I'm really happy to come back each year and also sponsor it. I'm operationally not involved anymore, but the crew has done a tremendous job. So thank you very much for that. Indeed, co-founded or founded the Belgium chapter. Now, I've started my career as a software developer 30 years ago, so that gives away my age a little bit, and then switched to the dark side of what was then called information security. So it's actually what cybersecurity is called now. And really quickly then understood what I was doing wrong during the first 5 years, and to compensate that, I started the OWASP Belgium chapter. And then in the last 10, 11 years, I've co-founded also a company called Torion. So we have a booth here. Do join us at the booth. I will have a little bit of a pitch at the end of the talk. Now, let's start with, so why did I take AI? Because what do I know about AI? Actually, I did my master thesis. At the time it was called a licentiate informatica, but nowadays it's a master. My master thesis on with neural networks. So I actually had to program in C at the time my own neural network with backpropagation. It was a very simple, small neural network, a couple of layers, a couple of nodes. I think the biggest algorithm that I trained was about 18,000 parameters. Now, why did I need to do that? Because somebody at Barco Graphics at the time wanted to figure out if it was possible to replace a rule-based system to do hyphenation of words, to split words, yes, and to replace that with a neural network, because those rule-based systems are quite expensive to make, and also you have to make them for every language. So, was it possible to replace that with a neural network? Now, hyphenation of words seems simple, but it is not, and definitely not in a couple of languages. For instance, in English, just as an example, the way how you split or hyphen the word record depends if you're recording or recording to a record. So then there's a different place in the word where you have to put the hyphen. So it really depends on the context of that word in a certain phrase. Now, I did my thesis. I built neural networks on, at the time, a very powerful machine, an Intel 486, which I luckily expanded to 2 megabytes of RAM. So I could also play a couple of SimCity games at the time. But obviously, I could not do it while training the network or my algorithm, because it took over 80 hours to converge the neural net to do some decent hyphenation. And it worked quite well, but there were some real bottlenecks. Processing, to start with, and data. We needed more training data. So obviously this was in what we call the dark ages of AI, in the middle of the 90s. AI has evolved since then. So if you fast forward to now, I've always followed what was happening with AI. Obviously, I've done a lot of coding myself, but the way how computing and building applications, building products, building systems has evolved over the last 30 years has changed dramatically. And I've always followed that up also from an AI point of view, attended conferences, read the papers, and followed up on the new evolutions. And also with the company that we're working with, we also work and are now confronted with more and more questions. Okay, we have now these AI systems, AI applications. How do we secure this? So I've personally also created this year an AI threat modeling training. And we need to tackle or to look at AI a little bit different than a regular software program, because there's different challenges, different risk, different attack surfaces, and regular AppSec controls will probably not work. You still need them, because a model, a trained algorithm in itself still needs to exchange input and output with other systems. So the whole scaffolding, the whole pipelines around AI are still typical AppSec infrastructure security. You still need that. But for AI algorithms, there's a couple of things that are quite specific. So, but before we get there, let's take a step back. What happened in November 2022? GPT 3.5. So that neural network, totally different, with all kinds of transformer algorithm in there, has 175 billion parameters. So it's a little bit bigger than what you could put on a 486. But this was really the starting point of the age of AI. It's not that AI did not exist before that, but this is the moment when AI became mainstream. And I think I pretty much like the day after and the week after already was on there trying it out, figuring it out. At the time it was really lousy and had lots of problems, but obviously it has improved a lot. So we're now with ChatGPT 5, so it's completely different over the last 2.5 years, actually. But we are at the tipping point where we go from the old system, well, old, there's also kinds of new stuff in there as well, but the way how we look at building systems, working with intelligence and deploying that, we're really entering an age where we are able to augment our intelligence. And I think it's not too far-fetched to compare AI with a steam engine machine. The steam engine machine, at the time, we could augment our power, our physical power, and that led to the Industrial Revolution. Yes. AI will provide us with the possibility to build a new information and intelligence revolution. And it makes it more accessible to a lot of people, with its dangers, but also with a lot of possibilities. So what we see with AI is that we can do lots of impactful stuff. I think the first and foremost innovation in medicine, in health, has already been very promising over the last 10, 20 years, but now has evolved even faster. It also makes it possible for everybody in the world to access all the knowledge that is integrated in these algorithms. So it it makes it more accessible for everybody. And it does make us more productive. Sometimes you have to put quite some time into learning how it works, but once you start to use it, you become more efficient. So I, for one, I'm an early adopter. I've tried all these tools, and some of them are really bad, but most of them are really good. So my workflow has evolved drastically. And it's a really good tool to also learn and to develop your skills. I think for somebody who is new to programming, having ChatGPT or Claude Code is really helpful. It helps you to build systems. You still have to debug it, obviously, but it lowers the barrier, it lowers the entry barrier for people to build new systems. And I hear and I see a lot of, like, this is an AI bubble, it will not stay. I'm pretty sure AI is here to stay. I've looked up, well, I did not look up, Gartner looked it up, that's their business. How much is spent in IT markets on AI? And they estimate that in 2025, an eye-watering $1.5 trillion, so this is in millions of dollars, $1.5 trillion is being spent on development of AI. And I think it's an underestimation. I think it was only a couple of days back that NVIDIA promised to invest another $100 billion in OpenAI. And Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, their ambition is in the near future to build an additional 1 gigawatt of AI production in their data centers per week in the next couple of years. So that is huge. Will there be failures? Obviously. But if you would compare this, for instance, with the dot-com bubble from over 20 years ago, it's completely different. The organizations that are working on AI right now have really deep pockets. And that was different when you had the dot-com bubble. Also, this is really a race. Certainly for the frontier labs, like OpenAI, Anthropic, now also xAI, they really are racing towards what they call AGI, but for them it's really critical to become there first. And that's why we see this enormous investment. But with that, we also see adoption. We see that organizations are more and more trying to use it, building systems, using it in all kinds of ways, in a way that it's really impactful. For instance, now OpenAI has more than 700 million active users per week. That is incredible. I looked up the profit margin of Google over the last couple of years, and in 2 years' time, they were able to improve their operating margin by $10 billion. Okay, they also laid off some people, but they made other people more efficient with AI. Probably they hired too much people during Corona anyways. So there is real impact, and there are a lot of organizations that are using AI more and more. Now, it's not only about investment. I already hinted a little bit on layoffs. This is changing the way we work. So it's not only about changing the tasks, how can something be done, it's reshaping careers. Yes. I think if you're a translator, you're pretty much fucked. That thing is really solved by AI. Other potential careers might also be changing. We look at developers, if you look at security professionals, there will be a dramatic change in how our jobs, how our careers will evolve over the next couple of years and decades. So I've made a screenshot here of HackerOne leaderboard. Anybody who knows what XBOW is? Some of you. So XBOW is a company who built an AI system that does penetration testing without any intervention. Well, they claim without any intervention, but there's a couple of people working at XBOW, so they're probably always like tuning the AI-powered automation that is continuously doing or subscribing to these bug bounties, finding vulnerabilities, probably not the most critical ones, but they're finding a lot of them. So they managed with this system to become at the top of the leaderboard of HackerOne, beating a lot of other humans. Well, obviously, I think a lot of pentesters and bug bounty hunters will probably have a lot of automation themselves as well. But you see here an evolution that an autonomous AI system can also do this. Will it be able to solve and find every bug and every vulnerability? Probably not. But what it's really good at is continuously doing it, finding these vulnerabilities, but also finding vulnerabilities that other people did not find in the past. There was a couple of people at the Google security team that they used AI and they found memory issues and race conditions in the software that previously human hackers and humans researchers could not find. So does this mean that XBOW and AI pentesters are going to replace us all? I don't think so. We'll definitely cover that later on, but it will impact our work, if it's not already impacting it right now. What I also said is that AI makes it possible for a lot of people that don't have any programming experience to build systems themselves. It's called vibe coding. Yes. It's also no-code development, but vibe coding is just much more fun as an expression. And there was this guy, I don't know, who has seen this? This was in a couple of months back, yes. Leo, he was really proud because he downloaded Cursor, like it's a development tool, and you just can instruct Cursor like, build me this, build me that, and it will build something. It will look like a duck, it will talk like a duck, but actually there will probably be issues with it. So he built this, I think it was like a sort of like sales CRM-like system. As a SaaS, he put it online, and it was making him money. So he was very proud of that and put that on Twitter, like, look at this. I've built this. I'm not a developer. Everybody can do this, so this is the new revolution. And yes, obviously people can pay for it, so he had some, I think a couple of hundreds of dollars of revenue out of this. A couple of days later, the same Leo, well, I shared this online, but random things are happening. I've maxed out my API keys. People are bypassing the subscription, creating random shit in my database. And I'm not technical, so I have no idea how to figure this out, and I will stop sharing this, but there are just some weird people out there. Yes, I think he was confronted with a harsh reality that generated AI code is really good for prototyping something, but it's horrible insecure. So he was hacked upside down and sideways or whatever. And this is something we see all the time, obviously. So we within the Cybersecurity Coalition, we have an AppSec focus group. Last Friday, we had a meeting on how to tackle insecure generated code, and that's a real issue. So in itself, things can go wrong, and there's lots of potential risk with LLMs and in Gen AI in particular. So Steve Willison, he explained, or he came up with the notion of the lethal trifecta. So we need three things. If an LLM has access to your private data, which obviously it will need to, if it has to do something, is exposed to untrusted content. So think chat interface or API, but also has the ability to externally communicate. That's called exfiltration. You're in trouble. So if you have these three combined, you're definitely in trouble. Specifically, if you mix this with prompt injection. So I'm going to reverse the question. Who of you here does not know what prompt injection is? So don't be shy. Okay, all right. Who of you here think we have solved prompt injection? Okay, all right, I would like to know how. But this is so prompt injection is really social engineering the LLM. And the LLM, by design, is built to provide you with an answer. So it's really hard to filter out like attacks towards a chat interface or an API, because it's natural language. Where, for instance, in the past, when you had like SQL injection, you still had the possibility to do parameterized queries. There's some structure in the madness there. And you can solve a SQL injection. With an LLM, you can't solve that. There's even a guy who came up with first like explaining to the LLM a new language, then in that language doing a prompt injection. So try building a filter that will block that. So it's really hard. And you can come up with other systems where it's looking at the input and the output, but it slows it down. And if there's something that developers don't like, it's slowing down their system. So potential issues there. But it unfortunately gets worse. Certainly this year, you've probably seen it recently. So Google is joining the LLM-powered browser evolution. So we already had Perplexity with the Comet browser. We had Dia from the browser community. They're recently acquired by another company. And then Atlassian. So we'll see what happens there. But Chrome, for the moment, just in the US, so have not had the possibility to try it out yet, also now has Gemini embedded in the browser interface. And why? Because then it has access to your personal data. It can do all kinds of useful stuff. But there's also an interface to that, and it will definitely have communication possibilities. So you see where this is going. So it's going to be... I think browser security was already hard, and for the last couple of years, it became better. Also, we already only had like a couple of browsers, but now everybody is building an LLM-based power, and we'll see how that's going to evolve, but I predict lots of vulnerabilities in those. And to make it more interesting, there's a thing called MCP. So this is like the context protocol where, as an agent, you want to do something towards to perform a certain action, but you're too lousy to build like a decent API, so you're just asking another MCP server, what do you have in terms of capabilities and data, what do you expect, and then we'll exchange something in terms of information, or we do some activities. In itself, really cool, and it works, but we've seen, for instance, with the GitHub MCP disaster, what it can lead to. So it will evolve, it will hopefully improve, but it's not going to make things easier for us to secure this. So it gets a little bit worse, but then I will end with a hopeful message. So what we see here is an arms race, and we had that in the past as well, but now it's getting for real. So attackers and attacker groups are weaponizing and operationalizing AI. There's lots of reports already out there. The last one from Claude is where they had like an example where it was a random attacker group, they were calling it vibe hacking, was doing automated reconnaissance. And they were not really worried what kind of industry or what kind of organizations they were hacking or attacking. Decision-making was automated, profiling was automated, they created automated ransom notes, and they obviously also, because, well, probably there's not too many or hackers out there, or attackers, let me put it like that have a lot of financial background. But we now have like an LLM that can do the financial analysis to figure out how much a victim organization can pay. So that's a real use case. So that's and for me, what was flabbergasting is that these organizations were using Claude to do this. So you have to be really brutal to use like a public LLM chatbot with obviously logging, and they found it out and they kicked them out, but to abuse that. So that's, and the same thing also happened with OpenAI in June. They also published a report where there were real APT groups using AI techniques to do open source intelligence gathering, to debug code, all kinds of port scanning and so on. So they were really building the infrastructure on AI and operate and making it faster and more efficient. Now, obviously, they won't be using OpenAI or Claude for long. These organizations, they know how to find that out. But if I were them, and they will definitely be doing this, there's lots of open source large language models out there with the same kind of capabilities that you can spin up in your own private cloud and private environments with the same capabilities, and you can automate the shit out of this. So, and this is happening. There's an increase in phishing. Phishing becomes more efficient from an attacker point of view, and there's really only one explanation for this. It's because it's AI powered, and it's going to get worse. Yes. Now, to put this to a higher level in terms of how bad it can get. And you know, there is a summit going on at the United Nations in New York. We had President Zelensky there yesterday, and he was talking about the most destructive arms race in human history. So Ukraine, they're building now. So last year they built 1.5 million drones. They're projected to build 4 million drones this year. Now these drones are not all going to be human piloted. More and more, these are AI-powered drones, and they're attacking people, infrastructure, other drones automatically. Yes, and this is getting out of control really quickly. Obviously, and this is the Russians against the Ukrainians, but we're witnessing an arms race that's going on that will have, hopefully, not too bad of an impact on the rest of the world, but it's obviously he was a little bit pitching their own new industry. And they will probably make some money out of this. But he himself even came to the conclusion that we need rules on how to contain and regulate AI in the use of these weapons in a similar way that we are containing nuclear arms. So, and that's saying something. Yes. And if we can bring up the topic of regulation, there's some bad news there. Certainly in the US, we had some regulation by the prior administration, but the new administration is not really keen on this. And so recently also Jan Leijke found out that there is a couple of people, VC-based, and backed by the big players that have put out or organized a 100 million super PAC. Now, a PAC, that's an organization in the US to do lobbying towards the politicians in the US to make sure that AI regulation will be done and finished. And they were really successful when they've done this before with crypto. I think US is now crypto heaven. AI, there will be no, I would say, rules out there to block any organization to build whatever kind of dangerous AI that is possible. So I think we might say that we're a little bit in trouble there. So why does this go, or why is this going so badly wrong? You have people that think that AI will kill us all, or AI will solve it all. I think potentially there's a middle road here, hopefully. But it's something that we, and when I say we, it's here, people here, but also outside of this room, we can influence, and we should influence this. So we are at not only at the tipping point, but also at a split in the road where things can go horribly wrong, or things can go really well. So we can go for a dystopia where we're all changed into batteries. If you look at the Matrix, how we evolve as a human race, or towards a world where there's post-scarcity and everybody does not need to work and we can all go golfing and everything is done. Now, probably neither of these scenarios is going to happen. I'm not even going to talk about climate impact and so on, because that would bring us probably like an extra hour further away. But tools, like AI is like a tool. It can be used for good, it can be used for bad. Yes. And it's our job really to shape how that's going to happen and how to bend the dark to a more safe and ethical use of AI. So how can we do this? Now, I think we're lucky that we're in Europe and that we might bitch about all the regulations, but it brings also quite some good and it levels the playing field, but also it makes it harder for organizations to abuse AI in a way that would impact us as humans and human rights. And the EU AI Act, which is already active, is pretty decent in a way that it's risk-based. So based on the type of algorithm, based on the type of impact, you will need to do more or less in terms of governance and security around this. I think that's great. Other people or other organizations worldwide are not so happy with that. So there's American organizations that are really not happy about that. And I would say one sign there is Apple, where I think, well, Apple should be, and they're really about pro-privacy. But recently they launched the AirPods Pro 3, which is a great new, it has a great new feature. You can have it real-time translate somebody else when they're speaking French, and it can translate it to English and the other way around. Only thing is, it does not launch in Europe because of regulation. I think they're just like forcing our hands here, but anyway. But I think it's good, and we need more of this. And I think just with GDPR, we're setting the standard versus US, where there's less regulation, or China. China has regulation, but it's state-based regulation. So it's a different kind of regulation. Anyway, and what we also see, and this is a little bit scary, is that most of these frontier labs, like Google, OpenAI, Claude, and Anthropic, they're building systems and policies out there to do some basic risk analysis, but also to put in place some kind of containments and breaks when things might go wrong. So only recently, Google came out with their version 3 of the Frontier Safety Framework. And depending on the base of the level of capabilities, there's an increased or a lower risk in terms of what an AI can do. But it really comes down to them building in some kind of framework for them to be able to turn off the AI. So it's good that they're doing this at the one hand, but I'm also afraid a little bit of all the other, I would say, organizations out there, because these are the commercial, known ones. But I cannot imagine that, just thinking out loud, organizations in China, state-sponsored, would have the same kind of protocols in place. So let's hope for that. And then when it comes down to us as organizations to defend ourselves, and obviously most of these images are AI generated, there's a new symmetry. So it's, again, a cat and mouse game. Attackers are automating their attacks. We, as defense, Blue Team, also need to be able to automate our defenses as well. And this is not new. We had dark trace already for probably 15 years now. But more and more, this is being embedded in the way we do logging incident detection, forensics, review, putting in place guardrails. And this is really something that we need to do because attackers are also doing it faster and faster. And it boils down not to who builds the best AI, but who builds the best, I would say, what Daniel Miessler explains as the scaffolding around the AI and how we leverage its capabilities and integrate it with our own systems. And we will not get around this. And one example is that, for instance, in China, maybe not the best example, but how they see it evolve is, in China, as of November, all the main network players will need to be able to report a security incident within the hour towards the authorities, and if it's really bad, within 30 minutes. So this has to be, and it will be automated. You can't get around this. So for us, it also means that we also have to have a better understanding of how AI works, how does this system work. And there's good resources out there. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased here, but OWASP AI Exchange is a good one, where based on the infrastructure in terms of development time and runtime development, you have different kind of threats. You have data leakage, you have development model theft, and so on. So I'm not going to explain all this. We can spend probably a couple of days explaining all this. But depending on the training phase, the inference phase, there's different kind of security threats. Now, what we still have to take into account is that we have these AI-specific threats. So we are actually, there is a bigger attack surface. It involves more data. It involves lots of new initiatives in our organization with people who probably are bypassing any governance that we already might have had in place. So things will be a little bit mad in the next couple of months and years. But with that, we should not forget that there's still the basic application security controls that we should still keep in place. So it's not only about prompt injection, but prompt injection is by far the one that we see the most. That's in terms of threat. And like I said before, there's no silver bullet here. It's the inherent nature of an LLM to obey. So if you come up with a question and it can't answer, rarely I had an answer from an LLM like, I don't know, I can't tell you, unless you're asking something very specific, like build me a bomb or something like that. So it tries. These are pleasers. They really want to provide you with that input, and they try their best. So how can we try to, I would say, limit the impact of a prompt injection? Because that's really what we are the only thing that we can do here. And this is advice from the GenAI Open OWASP project. Constraining behavior, defining what kind of formats that you might expect, have some filtering in place that it's not going to be very fast, and then privilege control, least privilege access. So these, for us as security I would say professionals, sound really, I would say, logical, but keep in mind that lots of organizations and development teams don't know about security. So they just see what it can do. They don't see the risks and the potential problems. I was doing a GenAI security talk at a GenAI meetup in March. It was in the Google headquarters in Brussels. Really, there were on-site and remote, more than 400 developers and people who joined that GenAI talk. So it's really hot. And it's actually because of BruCON I was there, because BruCON is sponsoring them and they needed somebody to talk about it. And I asked to the audience, like I said here, who of you know about prompt injection? It's better than here, in the reverse way, but from the audience that was in the room, from the 100 plus people, not more than 10 people raised their hands. Yes. And they were all building AI. powered systems. They have absolutely no clue what this is about. So it's about explaining development teams what can go wrong here. So that's the first thing. And then testing it and simulating it. This is going to be containment. There's no such thing as parameterized queries for an LLM. But maybe we can retrain in the future some of these models in a way that it becomes better. Now, prompt injection is obviously number one in the Gen AI top 10 from OWASP. And this is a project that has evolved quite quickly and has really smart people behind this. If you're looking for guidance on how to tackle this, I would highly recommend to have a look at these. The one that we have here as well, excessive agency maps really to using agents. So it's already outdated a little bit. So this is dates from November, December last year. MCP and agentic development was not really that hot yet, but you can expect a new top 10 really, really soon. Another thing that we see is from the OWASP AI Exchange is that it does not only explain the threat model, it also explains what you can do in terms of generic controls, putting governance around this, but also doing input validation and so on. So it's general controls against all kinds of threats, controls against runtime use, controls against development threats, and then runtime application security threats. So it's a really useful resource. So if you're involved in helping teams with AI-related development, you can fall back on this. And then, as one of the last points for us personally, and I don't want to bash only on the pentesters, it's in general, but will AI replace us as security professionals? I don't think so. But we will be replaced by people who are better at AI. So it's also a little bit of a race. Who is best to use AI to replace repetitive tasks? So you become more efficient. Expo, they are good at finding like not the obvious vulnerabilities that are quite known and not too exotic, but business-based vulnerabilities. These are hard. You still need human creativity to discover things that are going wrong in systems. So you have to have a human in the loop. You have to set the right goals and understand nuances in systems and also the ethics around this. And that is something that's still at this time harder to do for an LLM. So I think we still need it. But how do we do this? And I would highly recommend for you to have a look at this article. The CEO of GitHub, a couple of months back, came up with the results of a study where they asked and surveyed and had interviews with lots of developers that were using AI to a certain extent. And they came up with 4 types or 4 levels of developers. That you had a group that was that was in a stage or a phase of being AI skeptic. I'm pretty sure there's also people here that are AI skeptic. And they're just trying it out and say, it doesn't work, or it's hallucinating, it will never work. So these are just small, I would say, experimental usage and then stop with it. You have a group of people that goes to the next stage where they're exploring, these are developers, how to create boilerplate parts of the development, because that's boring, do debugging, prompt iteration on code. And then you have the people that become better at it, collaborative working with an AI agent in Cursor, in Claude Code, where you co-create and you prompt in multi-steps how systems are being developed and orchestrate how these agents are going to work. And in the end, you come to a level where you are more on a strategic level, overseeing what kind of agents are doing what, and you're optimizing that. Yes. And the outcome of this study is that these developers were really happy with the usage of AI. in every stage. At a certain, well, obviously the AI skeptics a little bit less. And it did not 10x their efficiency. Yes. And they weren't talking about like this saved us this amount of time. They're really about we can do way more now than we could do in the past. Yes. And certainly for development, this is a really good use case, especially if you're migrating or refactoring code bases or understanding code. That's one of the biggest challenges, especially also when you do a source code review, but also the big challenge if as a new developer you come into an organization or a development team, you have this code base. In the past you had to read all this through and try to understand how it works. Cloud Code or these kind of like agents are really good at explaining how code works. And on top of that, it also documents it, so you don't have to do it yourselves either, so that's a big win. So what we really need, and what I propose here, is that we learn from this and we transpose this to our profession. So you will obviously maybe go through these phases as well, but in each of these stages, try it out for small tasks, see how you can use AI in certain pieces of your work and how it can make you better. For one, I use it all the time. But I'm not relying purely on Gemini or ChatGPT to do all of my work. But these are really good sparring partners. And I tend to switch a lot between these interfaces. So I let Gemini come up with something and then have it review with ChatGPT, add my own stuff, and so on. So highly recommend it. But then if you want to take this to the next step, and you should, is how can you in your own workplace, in your own workflow, see and identify steps where this kind of functionality or intelligence can help you do this better. And you will have to put some guardrails in place. But I'm 100% sure that this will help you become better at your job, but also help you to become better at defending your organization. And it's very simple. Attackers are going to get more sophisticated and higher in volume and faster. We also have to, I would say, up our games and become better at using the same kind of technology for good. Yes. So this is about not losing our jobs, but this is really about improving our skills. So it's a shift of skills. And what it requires is to try to understand how this works, understand also how attackers are going to work, and we need to be really good at prompt engineering. This is a skill you will, and probably some, or even most of you will already understand. And nowadays, certainly with all these agents and MCP servers, it's not only about prompt engineering the agents, but also providing it the right kind of context at the right point in time. So putting it in workflows like N8N or others that make these individual, I would say, LLMs more efficient and better at their job. So it's more. So we're going away from the monolithic one LLM towards a collaboration of different agents. Obviously, you want to make sure that in the right places we still have somebody, a human in the loop, to have some oversight, to do some validation and verification. And this is about a continuous learning and feedback. And if there's one thing that I still love to do, and that's one of the reasons I went into security 25 years ago, I've never had a dull moment in my life. There's always something new, and I like to learn. And this is really also something that I would hope that you would also like to do. Probably also would not be here if you weren't, but so try to make sure that you also learn about how this works. Yes. And we should also make sure that we do this together as a community. Obviously, here we are as a community, but there is also OWASP projects that are specifically working on this. So try to figure out how they work, how you could use their, I would say, products, improve them. Join local OWASP meetups, but not only people that already know about security. Also go to these meetups where you have all these new people that are entering the market of developer or vibe coders. So I went to the latest Gen AI meetup as well in Ghent a couple of days ago. And it's really fascinating to see how enthusiastic these people are. Sometimes a little bit of a bummer when I said, about prompt injection. Okay, but they really want to understand how to secure this, but you have to participate in their community, and that's what I highly recommend. And then if you're based in Belgium here, there's a cybersecurity coalition. You can become a member, depending on the kind of organization. It will cost you more or less. But we do have a focus group focusing on specific topics, and I'm one of the leads of the AppSec focus group. And this is obviously a topic that is covered there as well. So if you're based in Belgium, maybe your company is already part of Cybersecurity Coalition, come and find me, and hopefully you will join that as well. So this brings me to the takeaways of my talk. I would say embrace AI to defend us personally, but also our companies, our communities, our society. For one. Attackers do have an army of AI, but we have the advantage. We can do it faster, sooner, and better. We have the tools that Frontier Labs have. So I would definitely encourage you to use these. And also, we had there's a State of AI Security podcast where Daniel Miesler was speaking. If somebody asks you how you can be attacked by AI, you don't have any good answer because you have not threat modeled this yourself, you're screwed. Because this is evolving so fast, you have to have an understanding of the threats. So threat modeling is a key activity, becoming even more important with AI development than we had in the past. And with that, I have a couple of resources. One book that I really like, and I would highly recommend. I have a physical copy at our booth. Don't take it. It's to have a look at it. It's from Mustafa Suleyman. He's one of the people that created DeepMind. And he talks about the coming wave, right? on not only about AI, but also bioengineering and so on. And he describes the risk in a pretty good way, but also focuses on how can we contain this. A little bit lighter, if you're commuting, the AI Security podcast with Caleb, and I forgot the other name, but good, absolutely. If you're into newsletters, Daniel Miesler has a really good newsletter, and I would also recommend you to join or to get the paying version, because then you can join the channel where you can exchange even more, but highly recommend it. And then last but not least, who of you know Simon Willison? He explains how all these LLMs work, and he has also a really nice kind of benchmark to see how good an LLM is at multimodal. And he always, if there's a new version of ChatGPT or Gemini, he asks it, draw me a pelican on a bicycle, like you have here. And this is quite good. You should see the one from ChatGPT 3.5. That was horrible. But I think there's not a lot of humans out here that can actually draw a pelican on a bicycle riding it. So it's becoming better. But I would say I highly recommend it. Really, really interesting guy. With that, one last call to action. I would say train your own neural network. And the best thing to do is to do this with books. So we are raffling away Amazon vouchers. So I highly recommend to use them on books, but if you want to spend them on something else, that's your choice. But we have a couple of books at our booth. Have a look at them, and I would say donate your email address to us. We'll be very careful with it. And then at the end of tomorrow, you have a chance to win some of these vouchers. So with that, I'm at the end of my talk. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we have some time for questions. Does anybody have a question for Sebastien? Right.
Just speak into it? All right. So first off, thanks for the talk. All right. Miesler, all the other guys that you quoted, I follow. I understand exactly where you're coming from, but I have to disagree with you on some of the things like guardrails on AI. Me personally, I would believe that our guardrails that we put in place, are more inclined to make our AI worse because, of course, people are behind the logic and everything going on there. So that's the first point I would like to ask you for some feedback on, but I would also like to ask what you think about the idea of the race for AI models, like you mentioned, commercially, I guess, but not just commercially, overall globally, because to me, I think the idea is whoever develops the AI first that goes out there and is exposed, basically will wind up ruling the world with that AI. What are your thoughts?
Okay, I'll take the first question first. Guardrails is making a system more complex. I've at the time built myself or configured myself numerous web application firewalls, and do they make these systems more secure? No, definitely not. They might create a false sense of security, but what the advantage was there of an application firewall is that you get visibility, and you have some ways of intervention. And that's something that you will also need for LLMs. So that kind of guardrails I would highly recommend. But you should, and we're compensating here for the insecurity of the system itself. Then AGI or ASI in the future, I think it's a little bit like self-driving cars. We were promised self-driving cars probably like 5 years ago. But then on the other hand, we are already relying on a lot of automation, and I myself, I'm driving a Tesla, regardless of the CEO. But the autopilot is improving; it's getting better, and probably in the far future, it will maybe even be possible to drive on its own. I think with AGI and ASI, it will also be the case. It will take longer than we expect. But indeed, the company or the organization that achieves in building an AGI will be able to grab a lot of market share. Yes. But will they be able to rule the world? I don't know. It's not about the AGI, it's about the people using that AGI. So it's and there's still a lot of good people out here and out there that will defend us, I think. Yes. And already nowadays, some of the functionality and some of these models already have like PhD level knowledge. But that doesn't mean that they're dangerous. They can be used in a dangerous way, but it will be the people who are using them or abusing them. So, and that will never change, unfortunately. Yeah, that's my personal take on this. But it's interesting to see how it evolves, and it's a race. And we'll try to make sure that we understand how it evolves and what we, or at large the community, can handle this. Yes. But in the way, it remains a tool. Yes. Hopefully, if it goes really bad, you can still unplug it. Yes. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. Any other questions?
I would say if there are other questions, to maybe go to the booth also from the streaming room. In a couple of minutes, we will start with the next talk. In the meantime, you have some time to go to the restroom, have a drink, but we'll start at 11 o'clock. So thanks again, Sebastien.
Thank you.